A brutal
massive
crash that caught everyone off guard. What came next changed the sport forever.
When happen this kind of things, all the rest become like zero.
San Marino Grand Prix, Misano World Circuit. Round 12 in the first ever Moto2 season, and nobody knew who was going to come out on top. The championship was so close that even the most unlikely rider could still become a contender. But why was everything so unpredictable? To understand that, we need to go back to the very first race of the year in Qatar. The birth of Moto2 brought uncertainty for everyone. Brand new class, brand new rules. Moto2 replaced the old 250cc two-strokes with equal four-stroke 600cc Honda engines. So it was supposed to be totally fair. That meant that no matter what team you were in, or how much money you had, it was the rider that decided everything. And among them was a man starting from ninth, completely unnoticed.
Tomizawa, having a really good ride, isn't he, the Japanese youngster, because he came with such promise.
He fought through the field, showed insane racecraft, and crossed the line.
History being made. Shoya Tomizawa, 19 years old, is going to win the very first Moto2 Grand Prix.
And just like that,
History has been made here in Qatar.
Shoya Tomizawa's name was written into history. Moto2's first chapter was his. From that moment on, people wanted to know who he was. They saw Shoya smiling, laughing, always positive, always friendly. He became that instantly likable rider in the paddock, the kind of person everyone rooted for without even thinking about it. Only 19 years old, but already one of the biggest names to watch.
I can stay here because this is very, very nice. My team works very hard and my sponsors help us. This is so incredible. I can stay here. This is so nice.
So when the Moto2 field arrived in the historic San Marino Grand Prix at Misano, everyone waited for the next part of the story. What was Shoya going to do next? The number 74 rested on his shoulder, once worn by Japan's fallen hero, Daijiro Kato. Starting ninth, Shoya aimed to carry on the legacy and make his nation proud. By the end of the early laps, Shoya was still right there among the leaders, battling for the lead and trading positions up to fourth place. On lap 12, as he entered the fast long right-hander.
big off. Oh, massive off. Oh, that's another red flag for sure. Look at that. Look at that. It was over his head. I mean, that is incredibly.
What followed was one of the most devastating scenes the sport had witnessed in recent years. The paddock fell silent as they stretched him off the field as the race still went on. Shoya was immediately taken to the circuit's medical center, where doctors began emergency treatment before he was transported by ambulance to the nearby hospital in Cesena. A short time later, the worst news was confirmed. Shoya Tomizawa had passed away from the injuries he suffered that day.
Unfortunately, and with deep regret following the accident that occurred during the Moto2 race, tragically, the rider Shoya Tomizawa has unfortunately passed away at the hospital.
So, what happened? It was lap 12, curve 1 at Misano. It's one of the quickest, longest, fully committed right-hand curves on the Moto2 calendar, taken with a bike loaded at high lean and the throttle still open. Riders enter it thrusting grip, momentum, and airflow rather than brakes or margin. And it was there that everything began when Shoya lost rear tire grip mid-corner entry. At over 230 kilometers an hour, the rear stepped out and the bike went down instantly, sliding across the tarmac and into the racing line, with riders behind still committed and blind to what had happened. Scott Redding angled the bike to avoid the debris field, but just behind him, Alex De Angelis had nowhere to go and no reaction time. At full speed, contact was unavoidable. But what made this even worse was the secondary impact. Shoya had come off the bike in a position where he couldn't move and couldn't protect himself as the group passed through. The injuries to his body were catastrophic. Massive trauma to the head, chest, and abdomen. He was taken first to the Circuit Medical Center, then transported by ambulance towards Riccione Hospital. Why was this crash so deadly? The corner doesn't offer a runoff that moves riders away from the racing line. Instead, a fallen rider remains where the pack is still arriving. In Moto2's first era, with identical engines and tightly bunched slipstream racing, even the smallest loss of grip could turn into a multi-rider accident. The sport would later introduce changes to equipment, medical procedures, and safety systems, but that part of the story comes later. For now, the paddock tried to understand how something so quick, so routine, and so normal for Moto2 could turn into one of its darkest moments. In the days following Misano, tributes began appearing from around the racing world. From MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, and national championships across Japan and Europe, riders placed flowers, stickers, and messages around the paddock and on their helmets. Teams posted memories, photos, and handwritten notes.
When happen this kind of things, all the rest become like zero, you know. So I'm very sorry for Shoya because he was a strong rider, but especially a very funny guy, and so I'm very sorry.
Tomizawa was doing a fantastic job this year. It was a pleasure to watch. You know, he was a rider that I was very interested to see what he can do in the future because his attitude, everything was always so good towards racing, and this is never good to see.
His race number 48, was officially retired from Moto2 to honor his memory. One of the few to get that honor because he wasn't just an ordinary driver. He was loved by everyone who knew him. But for his homeland, it was a pain no one could understand. To so many drivers in Japan, he was an example on how to make it. More importantly, he was their mentor, their friend. One of them was Takaaki Nakagami, who knew Shoya long before World Championship racing. They came from the same racing system in Japan, moved up through similar steps, and understood how difficult it was to reach the world stage from where they started. But most importantly, they were childhood friends. Just 2 years after Shoya's death, Nakagami made it to Moto2. And when they returned to Misano the next year, Nakagami was already fighting at the front of the class. He finished second, and after the season, he took out the Japanese flag in tribute.
Really happy to run in with this flag. So yeah, when finish the race, I a little bit cry, but this flag is for me is very important and for Shoya, and I'm really thanks to Shoya. And
every year since then, he walked to the section of the track connected to the accident and stood beside the barrier for a quiet moment of his own. A beautiful ritual in tribute to a fallen friend. Nakagami later reached MotoGP. That achievement meant something personal because it was the level of racing he and Shoya once talked about when they were teenagers in Japan.
For the Idemitsu LCR Honda rider, up and over the hill, Nakagami. He gets off that motorcycle, and there you go, straight away onto the crutches. Superhuman.
But it wasn't just his peers he had an effect on, but the next generation of Japan.
Shoya is like a brother for me. So because when I started racing, always we are together. He teach me a lot. Also, I remember when he won the race.
One of them was Tetsuda Nagashima. In 2020, Moto2 returned to Qatar, the track where Shoya won the first Moto2 race in history. A decade later, he was now lined up under the same lights. As the light went green,
Tetsuta Nagashima has won the opening night here in Moto2.
He crossed the line to take his first ever Grand Prix victory. His reaction to the race showed how much it meant to him, especially at that venue. 10 years later, everything came full circle.
History being made. Shoya Tomizawa, 19 years old, is going to win the very first Moto2 Grand Prix.
An absolute unbelievable story.
It's the same place. This is unbelievable. And I want to say thanks to Shoya.
Podium to his name. What a moment in the life and career of that man. Tetsuta Nagashima. Well, it's like it was written in the stars, wasn't it?
Shoya's passing shook the MotoGP world, and it made the sport look at itself a little differently. It pushed safety forward faster, better airbag suits, better medical response, better impact protection, and better circuit planning. And over the years, we've seen riders walk away from crashes that would have once ended careers or lives. And a part of that progress traces back to 2010.